Hi, thank you for attending my talk. We will talk about graph database prototyping with GraphGen. I'm Chris. I'm based in Belgium. I'm working for GraphAware, so we are a Neo4j consulting company. And I'm an active member of the Neo4j community. So you can find me on Twitter and Stack Overflow answering questions about Neo4j. And prototyping. So data, okay, but a prototype is not a complete. So it is like a proof of concept. So generally, it is part of the research and development phase. Why would you want to prototype a graph database? So Neo4j is super cool. I love it. I work with Neo4j every day. But coming back from an SQL world, sometimes it is not easy to model your data. So with tables, it is easy. So it is tables. But with Neo4j, you have 3 points when coming from an SQL world. So it's a rich model. It's schemaless. And yeah, you can solve a problem with the database in a lot of different manners. So there is also one rule in Neo4j, not 100%, but you should model your data for your queries. So ideally, you would first write your queries and then insert your data and model your data in your database. So it's a common technique with Neo4j. And yeah, the first time you will use Neo4j, you will change a lot of times your model because you will see that it is not performant or it is not responding to your question. For example, you can model a document translation like this or like this. So each time you want to change, you have to reload the data in the database. So as you said, you need data. But what happens when you don't have data? So you want to try, you want to prototype, this is innovation project. You don't have real data that is really fitting your needs. What are you going to do? Yeah. We're going to say how you can create fake data into Neo4j. So you can download a CSV file on the net for free, and using load CSV, you can insert the data. There is 2 weak points. It does not always match your use case, so each use case is different, so you will never find a data set that is really fitting what you're expecting. And there are some restrictions, because load CSV is really powerful, but sometimes you need to model your data exactly how you want. You need to do it in another manner. You can also create data with Cypher, so manually, in the browser or in the Neo4j shell or with any API. So this will create 1 node in your database. To create 5 nodes, you need to write 5 times the same query. And you will only have 5 nodes. And you need to be inventive with the values. So that's why I have created GraphGen. So what is GraphGen? It is a graph data generation engine on top of Cypher. So why on top of Cypher? So if you learn Neo4j, you will learn the Cypher syntax. So it is a language to learn. So in order to ease people to insert data, it is on top on the Cypher syntax. So here, if you look, it looks like a Cypher query, except that there is no create. So it is describing a node with property case. I just replaced the value with a data provider. So you can choose, there are many data providers. You can choose first name, last name, date of birth, countries, etc. I just added the 20 at the end. So it is for the amount of node you desire. So this will create 20 nodes with a label person, with real first names, with real last names, and also it will create many-to-many relationships between the nodes, between the persons. So in fact, you will have a mini social network in 2 lines of Cypher. So you just increase the 20 with 100, and you will have 100 people in a graph with many-to-many relationships in it. Let's see. Ah. Okay. So as you can see, all the people have a first name and a last name as properties. If we create the relationships, you can reuse, as in Cypher, the identifiers. And you just need to specify the cardinality. So here we want a many-to-many cardinality between the persons. Okay. This is a simple example, but with a more complex example. So here in 5 lines of Cypher, you have persons, knowing other persons. These persons have programming language skills. You have companies looking for people with this competence. These companies have a company name and a catchphrase of the company. They are located in a country, and other persons, and persons are also living in the countries. So in 5 lines, you have quite a cool graph already. But, okay, this is cool, but you need to insert it into Neo4j. So in fact, what is this graph here? It's just a JSON with a nodes collection and a relationships collection. Based on that, it is easy to generate Cypher queries to insert your data in the database. So I have here a local Neo4j database. As you can see, it is empty. And I have now person nodes connected to other persons. That have a skill in a programming language. I will try to close this. Okay. A country. You have companies looking for this country. So as you can see, they have a name and a description, so-called a catchphrase. And those companies are located in other countries. So from there, you can easily create Cypher queries to query your data. Another option is you can just export the graph in JSON or with the Cypher queries already generated. So sometimes you don't have a local database, so you would just want to test. And so you just copy the queries, you receive a text file with the queries, and you insert the queries in your Neo4j shell or Neo4j browser. So if you want to look, this is this. Let's create this for you. So what are the GraphGen, in fact, key features? Is you can easily and rapidly prototype a graph database. So as you can see, if you need to change how the relationships are done in your database, how if you want to move a property from a node to a relationship property, then it's just a matter of 5 minutes with the keyboard and 3 clicks. So the Cypher syntax, so it's based on the Cypher syntax. So you don't have nothing new to learn. You have a long list of providers. So you have hashtags, you have countries, you have UUIDs, you have ESBN books number, you have everything, in fact, you want. So you can import in a local or remote database. So you can also work with GraphNDB, for example. For the local database, it is mandatory that your database host is the local host, otherwise for security reasons. And it is open source, so you can find it on GitHub and improve if you want the design with me or have some issues or pull requests. So you can go to GitHub. But there are some new features that I think it is interesting. It's like node models. So these features are not currently documented. They are ready to use. But, yeah. So, in fact, this is really long to write. So I thought about something easier. Is with a hash. So you have predefined models that knows that they should have a set of properties. So these users will be generated with first name, last names, and birth dates. You can combine them. For example, if you have a Twitter application, for example, you will have the need for an ID of the user. This will also create labels for your nodes in the graph. So labels are now a key feature in Neo4j. So all nodes must have a label with GraphGen, and in Neo4j it is better too. And so this will create each time the label. If you don't use the hashtag, then it will create the label, but they will not have any properties on it. So you can see here, labels, person, user, speaker. Go import. Can also by user, by person, or by speaker. Yeah, so currently in the code, it is hard-coded that if you define many to many relationships, it is about 80% to the target node. So for example, if you have 10 users, each user will have 8 relationships to other users. So the cipher syntax is ready, so you will be able to define your own percentage on the relationship, because sometimes you want 100 nodes of persons with many relationships, but if it is 80%, it is already a lot of relationship to import. So you can also have an account for saving your graphs, and you will be able to define unique and index properties. So it is just with question mark and point mark. This is how many of you do know GraphGist? Yes? Okay. So if you generate, you can here create a Neo4j GraphGist. So currently, with the current version, it will not create a GraphGist on GitHub Gist, but you can have the template already for creating a GraphGist. So it will prepare the setup of the database, and it will automatically create some interesting queries based on what labels you have in the graph, etc. So you can see it will retrieve me all country code, all country nodes, person nodes, scale, company, etc. You can retrieve a country by his name, by person by first name, etc. Finding a person node and his node's relationship to other person nodes. So it is all generation. And at the end of the gist, you can generate the metagraph. So it will return you what type of nodes you have in the graph and how they are connected together, but based on the relationship types. I cannot create a GraphGist now because I don't have internet. So these features are ready. The only thing missing is the new user interface. So it is coming. GraphGen Plus. So it is running in the browser. If you want to have 10,000 nodes in a browser with the visualization, it is complicated because browser with canvas, with SVG, it is not really performant. So GraphGen, you can find it on GitHub. It is integrating a library, NeoGen, that is the core, in fact, of GraphGen. It is open source, also you can use it, but we have an implementation with, in a cluster where you can generate large-scale graphs. So you can generate graphs for until 50 millions. So why do we use it? So for some customers, we are doing load-impact tests. So they are constantly querying the database from the outside and seeing how performant the database is with the settings with a large graph. Also, you can query performance of your queries because a query with 1,000 nodes will perform almost always good. So if you know how to debug the profile of the query, okay, you will see it immediately. But for people not used to Cypher, optimization, etc., it is you will have problems when querying your database in production, for example. And we have also custom generation algorithms. So, for example, you can say that you will have like a curve during the generation of the relationship. So some nodes will start from 5 connections until 80 connections, etc. It's the end of my talk. Yes?